Okay, let's say I want to make an orthographic sketch of this object, and I want to include the dimensions, because the dimensions on an orthographic sketch are one of the main reasons for having the orthographic. When you're looking at it in 2 dimensions, it makes it easier two-dimensionally on the page to read the dimensions that you have added to your diagram and understand to which part of the object they apply. So let's practice with a simple object like this, what that might look like on the page. So if I take a quick look here, this is just a hair less than 10 centimeters. So this is 9 3/4 by 7 by 5. Okay. So if I sketch this out, we're going to have a front view and a top view. I'm going to call this the top. That's the front, and that'll be the side. So I'll have a front view here. Long skinny rectangle. Squarish side. And then a top view that shows the hole in the middle. Now, let's add some dimensions to that. The main point when you're adding dimensions is to clearly show how they relate to the object on the page. And one way to do that is to bring them out from the actual object using lightly sketched guidelines. So here's my object. I'm going to actually darken the lines of the object itself so that those stand out from my guidelines now. And then here is going to be a dimension. This one was 9.75 centimeters. And if you would like, you can add arrows here. Any kind of arrows that you like would be fine. You could do something like that. You could put an arrow in with a full head in it. Doesn't matter if you color the head in or leave it empty, your preference. You could even, if you want to be very fancy, do some sort of a swooshy arrow and have your style include arrows like that. I like these arrows that have a half head in them. That's a style that I've gotten accustomed to and I like. Just make sure it's very clear which dimension your arrows are indicating so that it's very obvious. Now, I also want to show the size of that hole and ideally the size of the width of the pieces here. And because I started putting my dimensions down, I need to continue showing dimensions this direction. So if I were to create a guideline here, just a gentle dotted line, I can extend that down so that I can put my dimensions in here. I didn't measure that, but the distance in the middle is 6 1/4 centimeters. So here we have 6.25 centimeters. And if I take that away from 9.75, I get 3 1/2 centimeters divided between the two sides. So that's going to be 1 1/4 centimeters thick for each side of my object. So this part is too small for me to write that in and add arrows. So I'm just going to add the arrows. And then I'm going to add an annotation out here. 1.25 centimeters. And now the only part that I need to add is the vertical dimension, or the height on the side. Because I don't have a lot of room on this edge of my diagram, I'm going to pull it out this direction. And that means any other heights that I do, I should pull out that direction as well. So I'm going to add some guidelines here, sketch in my arrows. Oop, wrong arrow direction. And I don't remember what that one was. That was 7 centimeters. That's not right, Mr. Miller. If that's that one, this one has to be this dimension, which is actually the 5. Not 7, this is 5 centimeters. Let's make sure we include the correct dimensions here. I also need to indicate how deep this is, and I should pull that out this direction because that's where I pulled my other measurements. And that is going to be 3.5 centimeters. Now, I have only one more dimension to show. That's been shown, but I haven't shown this. This was here. That's going to be the same, but I need to show this one. And again, I'm going to go down because I've pulled my dimensions that direction down, not up. And this one was my 7. So now I've labeled every dimension on my object. I do need to go back and darken in my lines here. So I pull my object out of the guidelines. And then I have a complete set of clear measurements. And again, to repeat the idea, the measurements should all come out the same direction. So any measurements having to do with something this direction, I've pulled out to this side, so they're all over here. Any measurements having to do with this direction, I've pulled out to the bottom, so they're all down here. And I've sketched in guidelines to help understand any measurement that might be unclear as to where it relates to the diagram. And hopefully anyone else should be able to look at that and understand. So with yours, do the same thing. In an orthographic diagram, pull out the measurements, add guidelines where necessary.